Feminazi stole my ice cream. I'm laid low by the matriarchy. I'm afraid of women. I'm afraid of myself. I'm afraid, and this makes me angry. Take the red pill like in the Matrix. The Matrix is a good movie. I'm afraid, I'm so afraid. I'm afraid of women, and I'm afraid of myself. But I'm a nice guy. I'm a nice guy. But I'm a nice guy. I feel you, my brothers. I'm a nice guy. I'm a nice guy. Such a nice guy. I feel you, my brothers. Nazi stole my ice cream. I'm laid low by all the misandry. I'm afraid of women, and I'm afraid of myself. So afraid, and this makes me so angry. I'm a nice guy. I'm such a nice guy. I'm a nice guy. I'm afraid of women. I'm a nice guy. A nice guy, such a nice guy. I'm afraid of women.
Hey folks, this is your host Caitlin, here to talk to you about the sponsor of Shethinkers, Audible.com. Did you know Audible has nearly 200,000 titles for you to choose from? They've got everything. Fiction, bestsellers, periodicals, you name it. And because you're our listener, you get a free 30-day trial and a free audiobook just by going to audibletrial.com/Shethinkers. This week, we personally recommend The Art of Kinky Sex, Beginner to Advanced Pleasure Techniques from Blowjobs to Bondage and Beyond by Denise Brienne. It's got tips on spicing up your sex life, starting with things you're already comfortable with before moving on to things you might not even have thought of. To download your free audiobook today, go to audibletrial.com/Shethinkers. Again, that's audibletrial.com/Shethinkers for any free audiobook of your choice.
The Sharon St. Cyr Fund is an organization started by members of the leather community to help provide often expensive hearing aids to those in need. They also provide grants and assistance that allows for interpreters at events for not only members of the leather community, but other kink groups and the LGBT community as well. Visit their website at sscfund.com. Together, we can help the hearing impaired. Hey, we're back on the air finally.
Yeah, we had a bit of a tech apocalypse back here.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like my fucking computer decided to rage quit or something. I don't know. The good news is that, I had everything recorded off-site, so I'll just be able to fix it in post. So you'll still get to hear us talk about eating pussy and whatnot.
We have such awesome sex Lexi over here.
Yeah.
You didn't get that drop, did you?
No.
Damn you.
You know I never use drops. It's just a running gag on the show that I think I'm going to.
I told you I was the one in that drop. Bad submissive. Bad.
Actually had a use for one, and I didn't have it. Oh, well. All right. So, yeah. You wanna...
There's our lead-in for our topic. No spankings for you.
Nope. Oh, well.
So, we're talking kink tonight. Woohoo!
Yay!
All things awesome. So, first off, a little bit of talk of what kink is and is not.
It's always helpful.
Yeah. First thing, gotta tell you, kink is not necessarily about sex. It can be, but it is not. I get this question all the time, like, wait, you're asexual and you're leather. How does that work? True story here. In Dallas, we have the world's largest leather fest. It is run by 3 people. 2 of them are a lesbian couple, master and slave. Third is a gay man who's a master. The lesbian slave has been serving for the gay man for about 25, 30 years, well before she ever met her partner. Obviously, they don't have sex.
Because she's a lesbian.
And he's a gay man. So, so it's, it doesn't have to be about sex. We have a saying within the community that, the biggest, most important erogenous zone, big sex organ, etc., is the brain. And it's true. It's kink is about what gets you off in, mental, emotional, whatever. It can be about sex. Which leads to the second point of what kink is, or I guess isn't, is kink is in the eye of the beholder. What is kink for some is vanilla or just whatever to other people. I mean, back in the 1950s, oral sex was, taboo. You don't talk about that. That was kinky. Today it's like everybody's about blowjobs.
It really wasn't even until the 90s that oral sex kind of became mainstream. Thanks, Bill Clinton. Yeah. And I don't mean that in an ironic way. I genuinely mean thank you, Bill Clinton, for bringing oral sex to the mainstream.
Yeah. I mean, nowadays you have people, everybody's like, it's more common for people to be like, okay, spanking in the bedroom, light bondage, whatever. So it's like, it used to be really that unless you were having missionary sex for the sake of procreation, anything else was kinky. Nowadays, it's like, people do all kinds of stuff, doggy style, whatever. That stuff was what used to be kinky, and so to some people it still is. To others, it's like, this is still, whatever, this is just normal. So kink is in the eye of the beholder. Stuff that I do that I'm like, this isn't kinky, everybody's like, dude, you do that? What the hell?
Well, and everyone's kink is weird, basically. Yeah. Like, no kink makes sense. So, even though there are kinks out there that I'm just like, I don't even vaguely know how that's sexual for you. I don't judge them for it.
Well, yeah.
It's just, I'm just like...
What is it, like Rule 64 of the internet or whatever that...
Well, Rule 34 of the internet is that there's a porn for everything.
Yeah, there's a kink for everything. There is.
Yeah.
There really is, and believe me, I've seen shit that I'm like, that's
a little different.
Yeah, I did not know about that. There's a kink called cupping. Like literally, they put cups on you for suction.
All right then.
Like they'll light a little candle or a match or something inside to suck
the
oxygen out.
It's that like
suction.
It's like that what do you call it? It's one of those woo things that people do, like sticking needles in you or whatever.
Well, no, this is for the kink to get you off.
I was gonna say, well, I guess some people get off from it, but what is the word that I'm thinking of? Oh, acupuncture.
Yeah.
Cupping is something acupuncturists do too. So,
Yeah.
And I guess some people find it sexy. So,
Well,
whatever.
I mean, a lot of stuff that kink has now used to come from, woo origins. I mean, the violet wand was created by Nikola Tesla as a healing device. Back then, it was the violet ray to cure people of all kinds of shit. And now people use it to masturbate.
Hooray.
With electricity.
Yeah. Oh, like in But I'm a Cheerleader.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
That's kind of a violet wand there. So.
Okay, so.
Another thing.
Is kink abusive? I guess I'll play the little straw man here for you.
Well, no, kink is always consensual, and that's one of our things that I've got that list down here. We have a bunch of different little phrases that we use that get bandied around. One is actually, we had our nonprofit, the SSC fund.
Mm-hmm.
Well, whenever we hear SSC, it's like, no, not that SSC, this SSC. Because SSC is actually one of the things we use for consent is safe, sane, and consensual. It was one of the originals.
I think that's something everyone can follow, not just kinky people.
Yeah. Well, that one has kind of fallen by the wayside because, let's be honest, nothing's really safe. I mean, the more common one that's used nowadays is risk-aware consensual kink, because, let's be honest, take a fucking shower, there's risks. Taking a shower, eating, there's risks. They may be minimal, but there's risks in everything we do. So, as long as you're aware of what risks there are, and, it's like informed consent. So...
yeah, I guess that works.
It's not abusive. There is a fine line that it can be abusive if consent is not there, but everything is negotiated in advance. Which I guess I'm going to jump ahead here. Everybody's been talking for the last several years about 50 Shades of Grey and all that. I like to call it 50 Shades of Rape.
Yeah, that's what I've never read it, but that's what I've heard from people in the real kink community, is that they're kind of appalled by what's done in the book because it's not actually what people in the kink community do. Do you want to touch on some of that? Because I feel kind of ignorant on both counts. So
I haven't read it myself, and here's the thing. I'm gonna have to touch on this, and this is not just 50 Shades of Grey. This is all kink erotica, or most kink erotica. They all pretty much have this same theme, that there's no consent in there.
Well, and that's kind of true in a lot of erotica, but I think
it's really bad in kink erotica. And
yeah,
there's a reason for this. In the kink community, we have very strong dominant and submissive tendencies in our there's a lot of dominance, like the dominance and submission in our communities, because there's actually several communities. There's imagine that with the GLBTQ, all the various queer communities, that you actually divide them up by whatever letter they are in the alphabet soup. And that there's you got the overlap. There are lesbians that are also trans, but not all of them are trans, and not all trans people are lesbian. They've got that overlap. It's the same within the kink communities. You've got your leather people who are into bondage, but not all people who are bondage are leather, and so on. So you've got several different communities within the overall kink communities. You've got bondage, by individual kinks. You've also got by different types of protocols or dominance and submission or whatever you want to call it. And because we've got so many different forms of dominance and submission and all that, we have this thing in erotica that, dominant people have this fantasy of having complete and utter dominance and control over someone. Submissive people have this fantasy of having no control over someone, and in the real world, again, we negotiate this.
Right. To me, it kind of makes sense that erotica doesn't necessarily follow all of the rules of real life, because I like to listen to audio book erotica, and a lot of it doesn't have that because, and like you said, listening to erotica is kind of like, masturbating to your fantasies or whatever. In your fantasies, you don't really have all of the messiness of real life sex, because you're god of your own little world at that moment, so you can just be like, whatever, they're consensual, they don't need to talk about it, Yeah.
Well, I mean, okay, it's like doing rape play.
Yeah, it's like rape play.
You're not really being raped, but, it's the fantasy. These novels and these erotica, they're fantasy. It's living out that fantasy of, I have absolute control, I have no control. There's no consent discussed, whatever, so that's all, that there's none of the negotiation, all that. In the real world, you need that negotiation.
Yeah. No, fantasy is a good way to describe it, it sounds like, because, obviously, our fantasy books we don't expect to be real, but we still enjoy them.
Yeah,
so
they're good for enjoyment and all that, but don't base your life, if you want to get into the kink community, don't base your life on it. Go for the advice books, like, the one that that we had for our Audible.
Our Audible commercial.
I would definitely recommend. Unfortunately, Audible does not have them. The books of Dr. Gloria Brain. She's my hero. She's on Spreaker. She has her own show. She's in the kink community herself. She's a worldwide, just world's foremost sex therapist, sexologist. She's in the kink community herself. And it's one of the things about kink that kink is like being queer. Often it shows at a young age in a lot of people. She has this story that she told on another podcast she did for an age play podcast, talking about when she was a little girl, and how she liked tying up the little boys and stuff. But she also tells about how she would get up on the back of the couch and just liked rubbing back and forth across the back of the couch with her pussy.
I was going to say, well, children masturbate. That might be creepy for people to think about, but especially up to a certain age, rubbing your genitals feels good.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, and
babies rub their genitals.
She just came out with her newest book that I haven't got yet. It's on my wish list for when I have money. Fucking school guy, but I have every other book of hers. She's a great read if you want to get into learning about this stuff.
What's her Spreaker podcast? Because that's a good place for people to start, I'm sure.
Let's see.
I guess while you're looking that up, what are some? You've mentioned that there's different categories or subcategories out there. Do you want to do like some basic terminology and what those are? And
there's different terminology based on different kinks and all that, but really basic terminology. I mean, a lot of it we don't even agree on within the community. I mean, you've got
it's like the queer community. We can't agree on anything either.
Well, I mean, there's
any community can't agree on anything.
Yeah. Well, there's different terminologies for even like what different types of dominant, submissive, etc. there are. I mean, you've got within different communities of whether or not a say, for example, a female dominant would be called a master or a mistress or whatever. Like in leather community, she's still a master, which I think makes sense because just by basic English, if you own something, you have mastery over it. Just because you're a female, you don't suddenly have mistressy over it or something,
Yeah, I mean, there's politics in it and behind language all the time. So
and there's all that, and then some. It's like, okay, she's a dom or a dama, and whatever. There's top, there's bottom. They have different meanings. Top is generally for like specifically a play scene, whereas the dominant or the master is more for lifestyle. Bottom and sub and slave and all that is, again, the more other hand for
submissive roles.
Yeah. Switch is kind of like the bisexual of the kink community, and in the fact that
get off the damn fence.
Yeah, they actually get a lot of the same persecution too.
That's great.
But there's also terms for specific kinks, like in age play they have. They'll use big and little for kind of the same kind of roles, although they're not necessarily the dominant or the submissive. That role can switch between the two, but you'll have the better role would be terms for them might be the caregiver and the dependent for that one, because it'd be
so I guess is there a distinction between kink and fetish, or are they pretty much the same thing, or is it just more like the style of how you do it, I guess, or?
Well, here's the thing. If you want to get like specific, scientific, like all that, a fetish is what you do is there's like fetish and paraphilia and all.
Well, yeah, I mean, you and I both know in the DSM fetish is when you sexualize objects, but in layman's terms, is fetish just a different word for kink, or is it kink if you're part of the kink community? Is that a requirement also, or? We
have different stuff, and it's actually just called the Gloria Brain Show.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
There's
We'll throw a link up on there then.
Yeah, it's kind of used interchangeably. I mean, there's kink community, and it's also used for a larger whole, because there's different communities. I mean, you have BDSM, you've got gore, you've got leather, you've got old world, there's different styles of how to do it, and they each have their different opinions of protocol and who should be what.
Okay, so BDSM is the tying up and all that fun stuff, right?
Well, it's not just the
say let's pretend people are just have no idea what's going on.
Well, I mean, it's BDSM would probably be just kind of the go do your own thing, and
BDSM is your own bedroom and probably not part of a community, basically.
Yeah, or maybe just kind of a local whatever.
Okay.
Leather is generally going to be a larger community coming out of. It started out of the gay community, primarily coming from World War II. And
I hear it has a lot of ties with the military.
Yeah, it came out of the military in the gay community in World War II. Eventually, we let straight people in, which really changed the community a lot.
I can imagine.
Gore comes out of a bunch of science fiction fanboys.
Okay.
It's based on a science fiction, not a series of novels written by. His pen name is John Norman. His real name is John Lange. He was a philosophy professor.
So is gore like blood play or what? It's
Gorean. It's the Gorean saga. No, it's the story behind it is it was supposedly written as a series of novels satirizing radical feminists.
Okay.
But at the same time, it ended up being this way of him teaching his philosophy of naturalism, of basically men dominating women and all that. So it's pretty much a traditional man dominating women society. Men are always dominant, women are slaves, with a few exceptions.
All right.
Yeah. Old world has a lot of ties to leather these days. It's kind of European stuff. And there's differences. There's like you'll have like Victorian, you'll have so there's a lot of different communities with different styles, but it's what we do. Everybody does their own thing. They have their own individual fetishes, their own kinks, their own whatever.
Oh yeah, no, there's probably as many kinks as there are people, I'm sure.
But what unites us as communities is just, the protocols, the way we
There's a lot of structure, I gather.
It can be. I mean,
yeah.
It's and even within, like, say, the leather community, you have different. There used to be a really strict protocol code, and now it's kind of like whatever the individual dominant teaches to their individual submissives or slaves or what have you. It's really within each individual household is that household's rules, So it's like any relationship. It's what's in your own relationship as to how strict or how loose it is. It's some people, they just do it at the weekends or in bed, and some people live it 24/7. So it's it's like I was joking downstairs earlier. Some people are stick their, have a guy stick their dick in them. Some people have a hot woman beat them with a crop. Different ways of having sex.
Whatever works. Whatever creams your Twinkie, floats your boat, all that.
So, there's we can get into different definitions of it. There's different terms. I mean, like I mentioned vanilla. I called you mine vanilla with sprinkles thing.
Apparently.
Vanilla is a term that's generally used to describe people who are outside the community. Because, vanilla ice cream is just kind of boring.
I like vanilla ice cream. No. This is just like, because people use vanilla for lots of things, not just the kink community.
Yeah, but
and I always get confused because I'm like, vanilla has a flavor. It's not like it's like you wouldn't use the term chocolate, even though chocolate has as much flavor as vanilla does. I just don't understand it, I guess. But whatever, it's a trope in our English language. So what are you gonna do?
It's one of those things. It's just like it's a boring flavor.
I just don't know why it has a reputation for having a boring flavor, I guess, but
whatever. But it's one of those things. It's like, you have so much, you can only handle so much vanilla before you think. And one of the things is here's a great thing for talking about what kink is and is not. People think that kink is all about the play, and for some people it is. But really, it's a relationship for most of us in the community. It's about the relationship. And a great analogy I've heard many times and I love is, think about it as cake. The play is just the icing. Without the, if you just have the icing, you get sick of it really quick. It's nice for a little while, but you just get sick of it. And the rest of the relationship stuff is the cake itself. And, that gets boring after a while too. But when you have the two of them combined, that's when it's beautiful. And so it's just a really fantastic relationship. So for me, my relationships would be, those dominant submissive ones where, okay, beatings are nice now and then, but I just want to have a woman that I serve and please and make her happy. So whatever. And that kind of leads into my next point here of, our societal standards of what is masculine and what is feminine.
Hooray. I love societal standards when it comes to gender norms. Oh, wait, no.
Yeah.
I really don't.
And you and I both know this because we're psych majors, but asking our viewers, think for a few seconds here what you're taught. When you think of the societal standards of what is masculine, what comes to mind?
Oh, I mean, even you and I can do that too. I mean,
it's like aggressive.
Even if we don't agree, we know what the societal standards are.
It's aggressive, takes up a lot of space, direct. And for feminine, it's like takes up very little space, quiet, demure. But you think about it, these aren't masculine and feminine traits. These are dominant and submissive traits. You can see these standards between like a boss and a subordinate in the same gender. And, so you think about that in society, in those traits, dominant, submissive. We unfortunately have those kinds of things that carries over into the community, and I know that's one of the big reasons why I always get fucking called sir. Is because I carry that myself in a very dominant manner.
You say, well, isn't that the joke about Marcy and Peppermint Patty in the Peanuts comics? Is that they're part of the Kink community, and that's why she calls Peppermint Patty sir.
Which, by the way, there are lesbians in the community that you do call sir. And or you would call master or whatever. Which gets to one of our etiquette things. If you don't know, ask.
Yeah. Well, it's just like with gender and everything else. If you don't know, ask. Because you'll make less of an ass of yourself asking than you will assuming and getting it wrong. So.
But so I mean, but that's one of the things is. And unfortunately that whole bullshit stereotypes carries over into our community. I mean, we're a little bit more immune to it, at least in the leather side, than, the more vanilla community. But it still happens. You'll still have guys who will assume, you're a woman, you must be submissive, get on your knees and serve me. And I'm submissive, but I'll be like, fuck you.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the people who don't know me be like, holy shit, he just tried to command a fucking dominant. And everybody else is like, no, she's just a really strong submissive. But, that shit happens. It's people then look at me like, holy crap, she's a dominant. I'm like, no. Another thing is people think submissives have to be doormats. It's like, no. Most submissives I know.
I can say, well, the submissive is the one who's really running the show when you get down to it, because you're the one who's calling the shots on what is and isn't okay for the most part.
Well, I mean, even that, most submissives I know, I have more than once seen a submissive say something along the lines of, no, sir, go ahead and sit down, I got this.
Right.
Which will usually get them in trouble later, but...
Right.
It's true, though. I mean, you can walk into a room where they've divided the submissives and the dominants into two groups and given them a task to work on, and you can tell which group is which.
Yeah.
Because the dominants will be in one corner, a loud clusterfuck yelling, and the submissives will be a nice, organized, quiet group with, everything working well. They get shit done.
No.
We get shit done. But there is that stereotype that, submissives are going to be quiet and demure and all that, and a lot of us are really actually dominant personalities. And that surprises people. And it's again that sexist women are automatically submissive.
Well, and to me it kind of makes sense because, I don't know, we tend to eroticize things that are unusual. So to me it makes sense that people who are, let's say aggressive in their day-to-day life are submissive in their sexual life or what have you. To me that makes a whole lot of sense. It's just like when you've been at work all day and you're a hard ass at work, and then when you get home the last thing you want to do is be a hard ass. So
I'm a hard ass in the leather community too, though.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing, is I'm one of those people that anyone in the leather community who's listening to this, and I know several of them are listening right now because I told a lot of people, like, hey, come listen to me tonight. And they'll speak up for me. They'll be like, she's a fucking hard ass, but she gets shit done. And I get a lot of respect in the community because, I'm still kind of new to the wider community as a whole, even though I've been kinky for fucking ever. Because I'm not one of those people who's like, oh, look at me. I go in and I go, hey, can I help? What can I do? And I get shit done.
No.
And that's what gets you really attention in the community. But, it's like, again, there's so much other shit I could talk for fucking weeks and weeks and weeks on end. But...
Spin-off.
Oh, yeah, I know. My own podcast. But, no, I mean, there really is. There's just... The fact is... There's just... There's just so much going on in the community. And there's so many people that the only way to get noticed is to get shit done, but not be
an asshole about it.
Yeah, not be an asshole. Don't be a glory hog. You know, it's just, hey, what can I help you with? You know, I'm not looking for recognition. Just do the job and say, hey.
So that's generally just good rules in life.
Yeah, exactly.
Regardless of what community you're in.
All right. These next two are kind of go hand in hand. Because this is a community. We beat each other. We cut each other. We do all kinds of sick, twisted shit to each other. It hurts so good. But we never harm one another. And there's a very important distinction there. I'm all about getting hurt. I'm all about hurting someone else, and I will be a service top for someone.
Mm-hmm.
But I will never harm another person, and that is something that, you know, there's a very distinct difference between hurt and harm, and I need to make that clear to people. You know, I can reach over here and I can pinch Dory. It'll hurt, but it will not cause long-lasting damage. You know, it'll sting.
But I'm not consenting to that sort of thing. So.
No, which is why I'm not doing it. And that's the important distinction. Hurting is a temporary thing. It's a pain, but it goes away. Harm is long-lasting damage, whether physical or emotional. And, you know, that is one of the things that we avoid. We avoid causing long-lasting harm. So, yeah, even if we're cutting people with knives or, you know, yeah, I've seen people get cut with a fucking whip before. You know, we don't do anything that'll cause long-lasting harm. I've seen people with rough body play where they're just literally going at each other with fists and clubs and shit and beating the shit out of each other.
Well, it's like, I mean, when it comes to things like this, it makes me think of when I used to play roller derby, and you know, when you play roller derby, yeah, you get hurt, your ass is gonna get knocked over, but it's a good kind of hurt. It's a fun kind of hurt. It's like, oh hell yeah, I'll get you back, bitch. You know, like you know, it's not. If you're actually malicious, that shit gets dealt with pretty quickly when you're playing roller derby, for example. Like, if you actually start a fist fight in roller derby, and you get thrown out of the game. But if you're being a shady bitch and hurting somebody, it's not as bad, because, you know, we all do it. So, it makes sense to me, you know.
I told you you're kinkier than you think.
I mean, I guess so. Everybody is to some degree, right? But
which I guess kind of leads into the consent and limits thing. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, it's all about consent. You know, you have the negotiation, and you negotiate every fucking scene. And if you're in a long-term relationship, you are constantly negotiating that relationship. You know, you may have a yearly contract, but you'll also have, you know, like a weekly sit down, hey, how are we doing, or whatever. Which, I mean, that's any relationship, yeah.
Any relationship should, but a lot of relationships don't.
No, yeah.
So I think that's something that the kink community does that more people should probably pick up on.
Yeah, but I mean, it's probably even more so important in this one because of the power exchange dynamic.
Right.
But also, we bring up limits of, you know, stuff that you absolutely won't do. which I think every relationship should do as well. But, and, this is a good example for me. I mean, I just had this come up with me in a completely vanilla setting the other night. I was helping out someone from school. He had his one of his children just came out as trans to him, and he asked me to help him work with that, and
right.
He got really drunk and just didn't understand the whole "I'm lesbian, I'm not interested in you," and started getting really amorous with me and started feeling me up, and he ended up touching me along the side of the sides of my stomach, which for me is a hard limit.
Oh.
I don't let anybody touch me there, not even my partners.
Not cool, bro.
Because that's an area that my dad really grabbed a lot when I was growing up, because of his abuse and stuff. I don't even let my partners touch me. I have no one that I trust to touch me there.
Well, I think it was our friend Neely who had posted it originally, but I looked through it, and it was a big series of charts actually, and it was called the want, will, won't charts.
Yeah.
But it's a big, huge list and you just go through and you say want, which means like, yeah, I really want to do that, and then there's will, which is I'm vaguely interested in it, I'm willing to do it, but it's not like something I've got to do. And then there's the won't, which is nope, non-negotiable, not going there, kind of level. So,
well, we have
it kind of plays into this too. I think you do kind of have to lay out some ground rules with sex and relationships and everything else, especially if you've got power plays going on, because I'm sure, if the power play thing is playful, then it's fine. But if it actually turns serious, then I'm sure that's not healthy. So it sounds like it's kind of a hey, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. This is what we're playing, but it's not.
Yeah.
It's play. It's not real, kind of a thing. So.
Well, I mean, for us, we have two levels of limits. We have hard limits and soft limits.
Mm-hmm.
Hard limits is I absolutely will not ever do this. Soft limits is I don't want to do this. When we build up enough trust, we can maybe push and see if you can maybe with your trust level get me to I might do some level of this maybe, but right now, no. Or, I can only go so far, and we'll see. Yeah.
I guess that goes into
the will maybe kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and everyone's got a safe word, I assume.
Yeah.
And I don't assume that just with the kink community. I assume anyone who's in a sexual relationship has a safe word, just because it's good to have.
And if there's ever a time that your mouth is otherwise occupied,
3-tap rule like in martial arts.
Yeah, or something else, because in a bondage situation you may have to have, hey, you're bound, your mouth is occupied, there's got to be some other way you can signal that you need to.
Yeah, there always needs to be some kind of line of communication open. If nothing else, just a line of communication open for you to say no, stop.
Yeah.
Which again, not limited to kink people, just in general, that needs to hold true.
And in the kink community, there's sometimes even different levels of some people have different levels of safe words, like red, yellow, and green. To say red is stop completely, yellow is whoa, let's slow down, let's talk. There's something here that needs to be changed, but otherwise we can go. And green is, dude, I'm loving this, keep going.
Yep.
Although I don't know if I've ever heard anybody ever call green, and I've only ever heard yellow called once.
Well, the green makes sense if your partner thinks that they've done something wrong, and I get why you would have those. So.
I just never heard it called.
Yeah.
I've heard yellow once.
Yeah.
And there's a hilarious story behind that. We had a guy drive up to the dungeon here local. It was drove 3 or 4 hours to our dungeon.
We should talk about dungeons in a sec.
Yeah. and was like, oh, I want someone to do CBT to me, which is, for those who don't know what CBT is, it's cock and ball torture.
Sounds kind of involved for
Yeah.
a new person showing up.
Yeah. Never been to our dungeon before. And I guess the person he was expecting to be there didn't show. So we're feeling kind of sorry for him. So I was in a kind of, not a training, but a testing phase, I guess. We'll see how this relationship goes between me and someone else who, has adopted me as her daughter now. I'll just call her Mama. You've met her.
Yeah.
And so she's like, okay, I'll tell you what. I won't do CBT for you, but I will beat you.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's good at that stuff, and she pulls out like this Nerf flail.
Mm-hmm.
And, and she has to go run and do something real quick, so she hands it to me and says, just keep beating him with it, and I'll come back. And so I'm beating him with it, and, I'm varying, where I hit him with it, and different levels of force, kind of thing you're supposed to do. And then she walks by and just reminds him, about, hey, don't forget you have your safe words, red, yellow, and green. And then she walks away again. And he's just, a few minutes later, calls out yellow. I'm beating him with a fucking Nerf flail. This thing is made of foam. And this is a guy who wanted us to do all kinds of shit to his balls.
Yeah. Maybe it's one of those things where he thought it sounded good on paper.
Yeah, this is one of those guys who had only done shit online.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, you brought up, we have, there's a dungeon here in Dallas. I'm sure there's more than one.
It's the second largest in the nation. Used to be the first. But someone else got bigger.
So how would somebody go about, if they're interested in exploring kink and all of that, how would somebody go about finding a dungeon and joining it and not being a weird creep like this guy, basically?
Look online. That's how I found it.
Mm-hmm.
There's a social site. It's basically kinky Facebook called FetLife.
Yeah,
FetLife.com.
That's what I've heard about FetLife.
It's basically kinky Facebook. Create a profile. And look for what's in your area on there. Look for events. Look for groups. That's how I found our local dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
I actually found it by accident. I found a local etiquette group, is what it was. I think it was, which was just starting up, being run by my now Mama.
Uh-huh.
And I called her up and said, hey, I'd like to join, what's the details on that? And she's talking to me and learning about me, and it's like, oh yeah, this is, this and me, blah, 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 we're talking, and she's just like, would you like to be my secretary?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was an interesting conversation. So,
I'm sure.
Came down, got the tour that day for our first meeting, and stayed for the meeting, and was like, yep, this is home.
So I'm assuming that given the nature of what it is, you have to sign like release forms.
Yeah, you will have to sign release forms. You'll have to prove that you are 18 or above, depending on where you're located. They'll have different laws based on the city, the state, etc. Most of them will be, you can't have sex here, no drinking,
no penetrative sex, I guess, or
yeah, no penetrative sex. No, no drinking, no mind-altering substances. Probably like no nudity forward of a certain point. For ours, it's like in the front office, and pubes must be covered in the dining area.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's just generally good table manners.
Everything else can be naked in the dining area, just pubes have to be covered.
What kind of things should people expect to be in a dungeon? Is it just like I don't know, like crosses that you tie people to or whatever, or are there other scenes in there?
It depends on the dungeon. I mean, ours has different little rooms, like little mini rooms set up for different kind of play scenes. We've got a medical play room. We've got an interrogation, like jail cell interrogation room. We've got a little schoolhouse room for, naughty schoolgirl or age player or whatever. Plus we've got 2 separate little actual individual dungeons, which will have, we've got the St. Andrew's crosses, we've got spanking benches. There's all kinds of different equipment for individual things that you can do. You've got stuff that you can chain people to the walls, you've got cages. And it's going to depend on each individual dungeon. I mean,
yeah,
there's all kinds of different fetish furniture. But it's going to be a play space. I mean, and there's also leather fests or different events that you can go to, and they'll generally have play spaces as well that you can go to. And I definitely recommend those if you want to get out to the community. There's ones all over the place, whichever part of the country you're in or the world. Here in Dallas, we've got several, I think 3 or 4 major ones of the year. I go to 2 each year. One's coming up here in March. It's the largest in the world. That's the one I talked about earlier. We've got another in August, which is Women's Leather Fest. We've got one in September, I believe, Beyond Vanilla, which is for beginners, called Beyond Vanilla.
Woohoo!
So we've got a lot here in the Dallas area. There's other ones in, Miami, South Carolina, all over. There's a whole circuit of them. So, and that's what the there's the contest circuit, and all the contestants go around to all these different things, going for their titles and what have you.
All right. Well, the show's over, so I'm resuming my role as host. Thanks for listening, Shethinkers.
You're taking over the show before we finish the etiquette?
Yes. We're nearly out of time, so I guess be super quick about etiquette.
Okay, we already talked about the ask first. One last thing for etiquette. Because of the nature of with stuff, if you know someone who's kinky and you're not sure if they're submissive, or if you know for a fact that they're submissive, and basically if you don't know if they're dominant, or you know for a fact that they're submissive, be careful saying any kind of phrase of praise to them, because submissives tend to be conditioned with certain phrases to praise. And just imagine, if you will, being conditioned that a certain phrase could make you orgasm, and people knew it. Would you want other people to know that phrase aside from certain specific people? Yeah. So be careful with what phrases you use. It could be very innocuous, good boy, good girl, or something like that, or good job. Even just the way you look at them. It may be just conditioned for a specific dominant. It could just be the phrase. So be careful. Now take over.
All right, now I'm taking over as host.
No spankings for you.
Thanks for listening, Shethinkers. To find us on Facebook, Twitter, and all the other internets, just go to shethinkers.wordpress.com. Be sure to join us next week when we talk about weddings, for reals this time. And now, in the interest of being fair and unbiased, here is tonight's counter-argument.
Democrats think that women are nothing more than helpless and hopeless creatures whose only goal in life is to have the government provide for them birth control medication. Women, I know, are smart, educated, intelligent, capable of doing anything that anyone else can do. Our party stands for the recognition of the equality of women and the capacity of women. That's not a war on them, it's a war for them. And if the Democrats want to insult the women of America by making them believe that they are helpless without Uncle Sugar coming in and providing for them a prescription each month for birth control because they cannot control their libido or their reproductive system without the help of the government, then so be it. Let us take that discussion all across America, because women are far more than the Democrats have played them to be. And women across America need to stand up and say, enough of that nonsense.
Am I wearing women's clothes? I didn't notice. When I look in my closet, I don't see male clothes or female clothes. They're all the same.
Are you saying that men and women are identical?
No, of course not. Women are unique in every way.
Now he's saying women and men aren't equal.
No. It's the differences, of which there are none, that make the sameness exceptional. Just tell me what to say.
Lift me up, let me go on silvery planet smooth while you're lying next to me, like the sun high above. You're the whip and the glove. Miss me sweetly, I'd have you find me. See some my toy store. Never know what I'm looking for. Right on top of every wave the ocean makes. Take me out, mountains shiver under me. Rhythm on, running river over my feet. Like a world holding me, you're the clouds and the trees. Miss me sweetly, I'd have you find me. See some toy store. Never know what I'm looking for. Right on top of every wave the ocean makes. And I read it in a storybook that a telltale heart is well understood. And you couldn't do a thing for me. I'm much past help, you see. Hear that sound glide around the world on a balloon trip. Take my love, double it and triple it. Show my hand, it's not too bad, not too soft and not too hard. Miss me sweetly, I'd have you find me. See some my toy store. Never know what I'm looking for. Right on top of every wave the ocean makes. Right on top of every wave the ocean makes. Every breath the world takes.
So, Dory, just because you're not getting a spanking doesn't mean I'm not. Go get the paddle.
I don't consent to this.